actually recorded. And then, yeah, assignment one. Okay, we are inputting. I have my TA to help me to input in the score there. I think most of you got pretty good. All right, so I'm going to start with talking about assignment one. All right, let me share my screen first. All right, so if you got any question about the grid or anything, let me know. And then I think we'll be finishing that probably within like a half hour. So we did all the grading yesterday. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly about this assignment. Okay, I'll post this one assignment. This assignment was is from one of our students, and it's actually a pretty good submission. And then I'll just use that one as a sample. All right. Again, there's no like correct answer, or I mean unique correct answer. So as long as your design is reasonable, and then you can justify it, I think that's fine. All right. So for this assignment, the few most important part. Number one, and we need to have a hierarchy. I know we had a lot of discussion about this one in the early days because we got a little bit confused about what should be the, what do you mean by like multiple choice, a single choice? I think I should change that type of topic next time. But then clearly we are looking for a hierarchy that reflects different type of questions. Okay, so that's why we are looking particularly to see if you have a abstract class or an interface, or just a class that's also fine. You don't have to make it abstract, to build that hierarchy. That's the very first thing we dig into it. Okay, we look at your code. So in this case, I'm just showing you one kind of a design. All right, so there is a question. Okay, as the abstract class, the reason we do abstract class is that there are a lot of code that you can reuse. So I put a lot of code here. Okay, so if you look at the question, you got a description about the question, you got a choices, the options you can provide, and then you also have a correct answer stored. Okay, and then here is a constructor that allows you to put all these attributes, and then getters, pretty straightforward. And then you also have something called in choices that it's just checking to see if your answers are A, B, C, D, and then want to make sure the submissions only falls into one of the four. And then there is an abstract method, which is check answer. Okay, because that's where the two type of questions are different. Because one type of question you might submit multiple ones, and then it had to match all those correct ones. And then the other one, you only can do one. So that's the key difference between the two. That's why I told you how to check and validate the submissions. That's probably the different logic you can put for the subclasses. So that's question, right? And then you got a two subclasses. We got a multiple choice question, that extends question. We got a single choice question that also extends question. All right, so let's take a look at the single choice question. For single choice question, you got a constructor. That's the same. You don't have to build this one. No, he built this one to just give a better check. If you're like giving the correct answer, if you gave more than one, that means it's not right. So we do a kind of a safety checking here. But then the most important part is that you need to implement a method that's specifically for your single choice question. In this case, that's how we're checking the answer. So if this is the single choice question, when you are checking the answer, when you look at it, first of all, you need to submit only one. Okay, one and only one answer. And secondly, we grab that one answer and then compare that with the correct answer to see if they are the same. Okay, so that's how you do the single choice question. And in the same way, the multiple choice question, okay, you got a constructor, and then you don't need to worry about the size because you can do as many as you want. But then to check the submission, in this case, you need to make sure you submit at least one, and then we will just go through the list of submission to see if everything is included. Because you might submit a list that has different order, right? The correct answer A, B, C, but then you submit B, C, A, but that's still correct answer. So this logic here is for you to check if your submission are all correct. Okay, So as you can see, this method and this method are different because they just need a different way to check it. But I agree that you could merge them together to use the same logic since they're both based on list. However, there's still differences on taking the size and everything. So that's why I feel this submission is a very complete one. It really checked all these special cases through the exceptions and give you all these different responses. So the one I'm showing you here is the hierarchy we're looking for. I know that the two type of questions might not be very clear differentiation, but as long as you come up with something different that you can put for the two different subclasses, that's fine. Okay, but then the key here is we want you to practice about how do we use a hierarchy, build a hierarchy. Okay, so in this case, it's an abstract class. Abstract class will be better because there is a specific method we didn't implement it here. But then if you want to do a class, that should also be fine. All right. So this is about the class hierarchy, about the question. This is the first thing you should build. Okay, so set up the whole question so that you can start to call and use those. And then the most important part will be the actual voting part. Okay, the whole actually system implementation. In this case, we have a interface. Okay, so this one, if you don't have it, that's okay, but it's always good to have some kind of interface to build for your voting service. In this case, the interface abstract, some of the main functionality we should have, there should be something to submit the answer. So when you submit your student ID and also your answer. There should be a way to see the statistics. There should be a way to count the total submissions. This is fine, this is optional. And there is a way to end submissions. This is also optional. But the most important one is you need to show the statistics and also you should be able to kind of have students to submit to the service. But once you define this method, then you will go to the actual implementation. Okay. So most of you actually figure out that using the hash table is the way to go to track the submissions, because then the same ID can just simply override the previous one. So you're not going to overcount it. So in this case, we use a hash table to record student ID and then student answer, submitted answer. It's a list. And then the service is associated with one question. So you are going to basically record, send the question, set a question, and then count all the submissions. And then here is the constructor. Now, when you submit, it's pretty easy. So you just submit the student ID and answers. And then as long as this submission is not ended, we're going to do this one and then simply just check out all the answers and validate it. And if they're all validated, then we're going to put that into the hash table. Yeah, this line here deals with all the duplicate submissions, because hash table, as long as you have the same ID, it will override the previous one. Okay, but he did add a lot of other things. If you go submit like AAAB, and then we won't consider that as wrong, we actually make them unique to say only like become AB. This is a very well, that's why I think this example is a really well thought design that covers a lot of these edge cases. Because a lot of the time when you're testing your program, you know exactly what's the input you're looking for. But then when you have the actual end user to use the system, they often can give you all these random different invalid inputs that you never saw before. Okay, so that's why if you can, the more experience you have, the more you can do to avoid those kind of a situation. Now, this is a very good way to think about this kind of problem. If you see the duplicate answer instead of student errors, I'm going to just merge them. Here is just printing out the result. This is pretty easy. All you need to do is go through the table and then show all the submissions, and then hash table show the submission, do some counting. There is some other utility method to help you to give you the total submissions, to let you to finish the submission, to end it, and also some other to check the answers. All right. But as you can see, anything about recording the submission counting it, outputting statistics, and then start and stop has been controlled by this voting service. All right. So these are the two important parts of the system. And then you have one more class called student. All right, student can have ID, can have their answer. So, but then students should be really separated. Students should be just dealing with the student information itself. It shouldn't have much more things. It doesn't have any other too many things from about recording stuff or other things. Okay, and finally we have this driver class. So this driver is very clear that I create some of the choices, answers. I use a true false question this time. This one yes or no or maybe, and I put them into a question. All right, and then here we do a simulation run. This one basically create a question, create a service, create a bunch of students, and then here you can just specify what kind of question you want, and then create a service, and then iterate all the student number, create a student, enter the answer, random generate answer, submit after all of this, and then you basically go to print, call the end submission, and then show statistics. All right, so I'm going to run this code here. Okay, so that just shows something like this. All right. Question, answers, and then statistics. All right. So I would call this one is really a well sought, considered submission. Okay, with all the details, and then, but then the structure is also very clear. So Jimmy's question, how do you choose between interface and abstract class, is very straightforward, because the difference between the two is that the abstract class you can put the code, right? Where interface you cannot put too much implementation code, you only define the method. In this case, we prefer to use abstract class because you see the question, both multiple choice and single choice question must have all of this, right? So that's why you don't need to put this twice into two subclasses. You should just put it into the parent class like here, so that they can reuse all the code. That's a very typical case. However, for the IVO service, we don't have any implementation. You only have one type of service right now. So there's nothing like code to reuse. So it's just better to make an interface to abstract the major behaviors. And then we implement it. All right. So it's mostly about reusing the code. How much code you want subclass it to inherit. Yeah. So yeah, there's no, we never said that we kind of prefer interface because it has a lot of advantage, such as you can implement multiple interfaces, and then it doesn't have to be in the same hierarchy. It's very flexible. But the downside, number one, interface, you don't want to change it very often. It's a very serious contract. Number two, you can't reuse the code. So it depends on the situation. All right. To summarize, guys, this question here, okay, I think most of you actually got it pretty good. Some of the key things I put some summarize here as I was looking at our assignment. We're just looking at this specific item. Okay, number one. So did you use the object or the hierarchy to model the question part? You have a question parent class, and then we want to see the subclasses. That's very important. Number two, can you handle the duplicate submission? That's just a more kind of a technical writing, little algorithm. So the best solution, as I mentioned, is to use hash table, hash map to do that. All right, but you can, in this case, we use a string to do it. You don't have to use a string. You can just use the object directly. I think that also works. Yes, so if you got those comments, that basically means that you probably are not, we don't really see that you're fully, complying with that. Okay, for any of the questions, just just send me an email or just chat with me briefly after the class. I can go through that very quick. If something got wrong on the score or anything, just let me know. Okay, I'll look into those. And then one common problem we see almost every time, and I kind of highlight that before, is that don't hard code the questions answers. Okay, in the description I mentioned that you can do A, B, C, D, you can do a true false question, but then when you configure the question, you can do anything you want. I can do A, B, C, D, I can do 1, 2, 3, 4, I can do sentences. It's just a string. So that's why the best way to configure the question choices is to just use a list of strings. That's what we're looking for. But then you can't hard code things inside your question. You can't say, okay, I have A, B, C, D, 4 answers. What if we have 5 answers? Or for single choice question, you just do true, false. What if I do yes or no, right? So you must allow people to, configure and then customize that. Right, so that's basically what we mean by not hard code the choices. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, we're posting the grid right now, I think. So you should be able to get that pretty quickly. All right, private. I think this is something that we did pretty well. You should always start with the private. Now this part, as you can see, it's used protected because you can allow people the subclass to still access some of this attribute, which are fun. If you don't want to use the protected, you should have getters for people to call, like from the subclasses. But then if not this case, in general, we should actually always use private, just like this, by default already private. I think this one, everybody did pretty well. You should from now on really start to form this kind of a mindset. Always start with the private first. Yeah, and then the service, the voting service part. Okay, a lot of you also didn't really create any interface. It's not a too big deal, but it's really good to actually have a interface. Okay, the reason is that you might think, this is the only implementation I have, right? I don't have another one. Why do I need to bother with that one? So that's kind of a message we try to give you. You can't just foresee that I don't need to build another implementation. You never know when you need it. For example, this one right now just use a hash table to record everything. What if later on I want you to extend it to the database? So you will need to build the same kind of thing, but then you need to talk to the database to record all the submissions. So that's another potential change. Okay, if when that happens, then all you need to do is make another subclass called DB-based voting service, and then the driver, you really don't need to change anything except to change the service from one to another one. That's it. All right. So that's why using the interface is really important. That's something we call the program to interface, not implementation. Always try to use the interface. Yeah. So the student logic should be more cleaner, okay? Students shouldn't have too many things, just names about student, ID, and then submission, some of those. Even if you don't include submission, that's also fine. But we don't want to see too much stuff in the student class, because most things related with the voting, all of those, it should actually go to the voting service. Most of the things about checking the answer, all of those should go to the question itself. Student just deals with student. All right, but you can also put the submitted answer together in this case, because if you think about the way we use the system like Kahoot, every user, all you are doing are basic two things. You fill in your name and profile, and then you start to submit. So these are the things specifically associated with the users. So that also works. Okay, but then have a very clean separation about the student. And the driver class should be separated. That's basically what everyone is doing. And driver code, I don't see any issues. Functionality wise, I think everyone got it. Okay, we're mostly focusing on the design and then architecture. All right, yeah, and then also the submission. Again, a lot of you actually did the implementation, but then when we look at your submission logic, recording things, there are a lot of associations. Rather than putting everything into one class like this, we start to see a lot of classes in the student class, in the question class, that does a lot of this recording thing. That's also not optimized. Okay, ideally, every part only deals with its own responsibility. Okay, this one does everything about the voting thing, and then the question, just record a question, all of those. All right, it's very similar to kind of the voting thing, the election, right? Think about when you go to the election, the voting station. They just deal with putting the machines, record a number, and then get all the numbers right. And then you guys only deal with putting your choice, filling up your own information. All right, and then there is also the ballot that has all the questions and everything. So this should be the very specific different parties. Then they do their own thing. There shouldn't be too much interactions. You don't need to know too much about others, how they're doing it. You just go there and then type your answer. And then the station only just counting, do the statistics. All right. So these are the key things that we're looking for this assignment. All right. Any questions? Which list? All right. So some of the yeah, right. So yeah, so this one, I think part of it was my like a homework. I think I need to change it. It's just very, very confusing. Okay, I think I had a lot of clarification with some of you, um, you know, in the early days when we just had assignment, but I realized that it's very confusing. Yeah. All right, but I also have some comments on some of the specific coding things. Okay, so I want to please pay attention to see if you, you know, you have the same issue. Number one, this horizontal space. All right, so this one I would say 80%, 90% of you already have been doing very good. But then, and every time when I look at the code, I can see students don't pay attention to it. Okay, horizontal space means that when you're writing the code, you should add spaces like here, before and after the characters, sorry, operators, and as much as you want. Not that much, but it's just always that get just a space. Okay, so if you always do things like this, if your code, that's what their code looks like. We didn't deduct any points, but you know, since we're talking about the better code, this looks really bad. Okay, some of you don't even have things like this. This is not to follow horizontal space. Okay, you must provide a space at the right places before and after the operators. That's the most important. Okay, and then of course sometime after the semicolon, after a certain thing, you got one extra space. Okay, also like here, okay, you must add this. If you don't do it, your code will look very, very unprofessional. Okay, just like when you write English, right? So whenever you got this comma period, then you definitely need a space. Otherwise, it will looks very bad. That's it. Okay, nothing wrong logically. It's just like a way to do the clean code. All right, so this is a very basic requirements. As a junior student, you don't want to write any code that don't have the horizontal spaces anymore. Okay, this is a very, very unprofessional. Okay, so that's number one. Variable naming, very important, guys. Different languages have different naming conventions. All right, and then for Java, you can actually look at a lot of conventions. There is something called a Java code convention. Let me show you. All right, so these are the recommended convention for Java. It will actually talk a lot of the specific things. Okay, I don't know if we talk about namings. Yeah, maybe they're not talking about naming. But anyway, so for Java, okay, just some of the there's the book talk about this one. The good naming, just like this. Don't worry about whether it's too long. If the name itself is a very clear and self-explaining, that's always preferred. Okay, you don't want to just go there to say a SC, MC, and then people can't get it. That's not good naming. Okay, it should be self-explaining. If people read your names and then they can understand without having to read your comments, that's always the best naming. And secondly, for Java, you need to follow this kind of style. I forgot what is it called, camel style, whatever. But the first letter should be lowercase, and then from then on, the next letter in the second word will be the uppercase. Okay. For Java, that's what we do. In Python, you don't do this. In Python, you do something like this. All right. And you might say, I've been programming in Python. This is what I want to do. Well, of course, okay, nobody's going to force you, and then that's not going to cause anything wrong with your code. So for convention, since we call it a convention, that means it's most Java developers are following that. And then if you don't want to follow that, that's going to cause a lot of issues later on when they try to read your code or you try to read others' code. So that's why any kind of a team, normally they have some kind of a guidance and convention you need to follow. You should never ask the question like, oh, can I actually do this my way? Okay, it's a very stupid question, okay, because you don't need to put any innovation on this here. We want to form a convention so that we can reduce the gap of communication. Okay, you don't need to create this extra problem for the team. Okay, if you have a different opinion on certain things, then you can read that as kind of an issue to discuss, or how should we name this kind of case? That's something we can discuss. But in general, don't be too creative on the conventions. All right, so that's something you should keep in mind. There's a good book called Clean Code. All right, so this is one that I think we'll maybe talk briefly in the 4D class. This book here, yeah, this one give you a lot of tips on what you should do for naming, a lot of other small issues. All right, but for the variable names, it also shows how professional you are. Okay. For comments, this is actually something most of us did really very, very well, and then you most of you actually know to put some good comments. All right, but definitely the comments is a good thing to have. It shows professional, but also doesn't mean that the more the better. I had some kind of a wrong idea on this. Previously, I saw that the more the better. But the truth is, a lot of the times, if you can use a good naming for variables, for method, to explaining itself, the less will be the better. So there's a kind of a trade-off, because the more comments you have, it requires people to read more, understand more. Okay, so you only put comments at the right places. Again, this book will tell you a lot of tips on what are the places you should comment, what are the places you shouldn't comment. Right, so you can find a lot of answers there. But for comment, you definitely need to have some of the comments. All right. This is like a very good comment, just to try to particularly tell why you want to do this check here. And then some of the special case that you never thought about. This is also another good comment. Like, this is make unique. When you read this, why do we need this one? This is not part of the requirement. What do you mean? And then it just explains there won't be this kind of submissions. Okay, but this is the kind of perfect comment, because it really quickly summarizes the purpose with example, so you don't have to go and dig here. What are we trying to do here? You do a set, you do a list, and then you add a list to the set. What the heck is that? And then you look at comments, it just gives the answer right away. So this is called a good comments. Okay, you use the comments at the right place. But speaking of the comments, okay, Now this one, we're not really picky, but I need to tell you, a lot of you will have something like this, okay? As you're doing the debugging, you actually, okay, comment out a few things because you don't need it anymore. That's wrong, and you're testing. Once you finish the whole assignment, you will start to see a lot of places that you have this commented code. And I'm pretty sure your code all works. However, this uncommented code, it's okay to have in when you do the debug, but it's not okay to have when you submit. You know, in our case, we're okay. We're not too picky. But in a company, you should never push uncommented code. Sorry, commented code that's not used um, to the version control system, to GitHub. Okay, it's a very, very bad practice. If you push something, there are a lot of commented code, then that just means that you didn't clean it up, and then it's not serious. Okay, so it looks very, very unprofessional. So commented code, it's okay to keep it a debug, but eventually you should clean that, get rid of those. Since you don't need it, you shouldn't keep it there because it will make others' maintenance much harder later on. Okay, so that's called that's for the commented code. Another one is indentation. All right, so this is also very important, guys. This one you all know it. No, I'm pretty sure everyone is keeping the indentation. A lot of companies use this 4 spaces to do it. Some company like Google, they like to use the 2 space to do it. I think either way makes sense. I personally like 4. The 2 space looks a little bit weird, but then the 2 space is gonna like save a lot of space, so your long won't go too long. All right, so that's okay. But then the main thing I want to talk about is when you are doing this uh, check into GitHub, sometimes when we are reading your code, your indentation are off. For example, we might see something like this somehow suddenly, and then it come back here. Okay, this is really, really bad because the indentation, just like what others I mentioned, just like horizontal spaces, this is like fundamental thing you should start to follow from CS 101, okay, from the Java. You should never mess up any indentation. A lot of times you mess it up because you don't care. You saw it, you know it's working, that you don't want to fix it and just fix it right away, okay? When other people see it, it's a very bad impression, really bad, okay? But the main thing I want to talk about is sometimes I'm pretty sure your code probably all looks really good in IDE, but then the moment you check in to GitHub, then your indentation suddenly messed up like this. That's sometimes what we saw from your GitHub. We look at your GitHub source code, okay? And then sometimes we saw some of the oft indentation. You know, we definitely trust that you probably already cleaned all this indentation in your IDE, but the problem is that, as some of you know, there is inconsistency of using tab versus using spaces, right? So if you know, as you do this, you can press space tab, you know, to give the indentation. Okay, you can also just do space. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Either way is fine. All right, it doesn't matter which one is fine. You know, the bottom line is you need to keep it consistent. All right, if you use tab, then you should use tab all the time. And if you use space, you should always use space. A lot of the time it happens that you were using space, but then in the middle, you start to press a tab and then they give you some extra tab. That way in the ID it looks good, but then because different systems deal with the tab with different spaces, that's gonna mess up the whole thing. All right, so that's why in general, in the ID, I think you can configure it, okay? You can just convert all the tabs to spaces or the other way. I don't know where you can do that one here. I think, yeah, display tag width for insert spaces for tab. If you check this one, I think it's maybe just going to help you to, you know, clean it up. Most of the IDE editors have option for you to configure this so that you don't mess up the tab and space. All right, so this is very important. Try go back to see your submitted GitHub repo to see if you got something like this. All right, I bet that in your IDE it looks good, but in GitHub it looks all messed up just because of the tabs. So in general, of course, using space is better, but then you should just keep. But I don't think you're gonna press the space all the time. You're still gonna use the tab. So that's why there's some edit option you can set to automatically save the tabs into spaces. Okay, that's something you can definitely do in most of the IDEs. Right? And if else statement, a very simple thing like here, guys. If description in choices submission, then I'm gonna add this one. Okay. Some of you, okay, this is not too common. Some of you like to write this. Is this right or wrong? For the same statement, I get rid of the bracket. Is that right or wrong? Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. It's still correct, right? So because if your condition only have one line, that's fine. Okay, but then don't do that. All right. You should always add a bracket, even though it only has one line, always. All right. So some of you agree it doesn't look very good. And then it's very confusing. Sometimes you will just start adding more code, and then it's very hard for you to check the bugs. This is also part of the Java code convention. Let me show you. I remember this one, Java code conventions. And then if you look at if statement, if else statement. If statement always use braces. Avoid the following error-prone form. This one here. All right, so this is the official guidance from Java, even though they support this from a syntax point of view, but you should try to avoid it. Okay, that's what the Java code convention is trying to tell you. Okay, definitely not a very good practice, right? So yeah, if you're very into Java, okay, this is definitely something you need to read carefully. Okay, so there are a lot of good things you can learn from. All right, and then oh yeah, class file check-in. So when you check into GitHub, you should only check in Java files. Okay, you shouldn't check in the class files. You know, all this Java source code, they will be compiled into the class binary format. And for version control, you only version control the source code. You never check in the class files because the class file can be generated from your source code. So that's why you don't need to put them there. And also you put in there, people can't really read it, so it's meaningless. But then this is more about the usage of a Git. For the first time you use it, it's okay. But later on, definitely start to learn more best practice about using Git and version control. All right, only checking the things you will need. The source code is the most important. All right. Okay, so any questions so far? Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, feel free to ask me questions. Okay, if you needed something to clarify about the grid, anything, just send it to me. Okay. All right, guys, be patient. I have a plan today. I think I was planning to finish the visitor pattern, and after that, we will give you the next assignment. But I think I want to probably change the plan a little bit. I want to talk about the assignment first, since this assignment may it's probably a little bit more complicated and then a little bit more time consuming. But it's a great practice. All right, so we'll finish the pattern next because I was this semester somehow normal I got a lot of extra time for the class. today I realized that we're like week 10. I feel that I'm way behind on our progress, but so that's why I want to be a little bit more rush on the assignment. Okay, so that means we only have still the 2 weeks to finish it. We're not gonna get too much attention on that one. Okay, because we still have the certain left. But then the second assignment I would say is your final exam. You can consider that as your final exam, which means it's the most important assignment for this course. Um, it's also a very, very special assignment for your whole CS study. Okay, I want you to pay a lot of attention to it. The same grade, okay, still like same weight as the first one, but in terms of significance, okay, the useful. Okay, I'm not talking about we're talking about useful, guys. Don't worry, Ryan. Okay, don't be nervous. But then this one you probably want to spend maybe at least 2 or 3 times more time compared with the first one. Okay, so I want to go through this assignment first. There is one thing we're missing, but I want to give it that to you right now so that you can start work on it because the majority of the thing you can already do it. All right. So I'm gonna send. Why don't I send this link to you right now? Okay, I haven't put it to the Blackboard. I'm gonna share this link. Okay, if I want to take a look at this one, open this link I sent in the Zoom. Okay, so you can see this assignment. This is not a group project, Christian. Okay, not a group project. This is um, yeah, Tyler, perfect time. You delete your Twitter and then you make your own. Okay, I know Twitter got a lot of news recently, and whether you like it or not, this startup actually I have to tell you, it's after this assignment you will realize how simple it is to make it a Twitter. Okay, and I never thought this thing can go huge. I remember in 2007. Okay, that's when the Twitter was founded, like a year after. I didn't really understand why people would use this one. And then a few years later, they just went to public. And one of my friends got 20,000 shares of stock, from Twitter, which was worth $800,000. I don't know now. I haven't tracked the price yet. Yeah. This is not the last assignment, but then this is the most time-consuming one. I guarantee the remaining thing will be just a piece of a cake. And we don't have final exams, okay? Just assignments. All right. So since everyone probably already opened, I'm gonna go through this very quick. We're gonna make your own Twitter, okay? This time it's not gonna be a command line, okay, guys? We want to see some UI, but I'm not gonna bother to do like a web service project. That's gonna take forever, okay? So we're gonna do a desktop version of Twitter, and then it's one like a local version. It doesn't have anything about networking, everything. Okay, nothing. However, I do need a UI. So that means if you're doing Java, I think that's probably everyone will go, and you will need to use this thing called the Java Swing. All right. How many of you have used this one before? All right. Some of you did, yeah. For the GUI class, I know sometimes they use Swing, sometimes they use Java Flex. It's all good. Now, some of you even asked me about Python Pygame. Okay, it's fun. However, this assignment again. This one is just try to give you a context. We really don't care too much about the actual functionality. Of course, you need to make your functionality work. We were going to go and deep into the patterns. We want to see how you have been using those patterns. Okay, that's the thing. Okay, just like how we grade the first assignment, we're digging into the code. We don't really worry too much about running your thing because for that one, I'm pretty sure most of you can get a functionality right. Okay, Java Flex, that's fun. Okay, all up to you, but then you need to show us how you use the patterns. Okay, all right, so this is the requirements. Okay, it's a desktop application, guys. Desktop, okay, no web, no mobile, no server, no database, any of those. Just a simple like desktop application that simulate the little Twitter functionality. All right, so I need to show you the UI. Okay, let's go from here. Okay, so when you run this code, let me see how I can make this one a little bit bigger. Okay, let's take a look at this little design here. When you run your main program, this should be the major window we see first. Okay, now on the left-hand side, we need a little like tree view, just like you can expand, and then you can add and manage the users. So for example, from the root, I can add a new user, give a name. I can add another user, give a name. On this one here, you can have this button, and then the input box, you can type a username. I click on add, and then that's going to add a user into the tree. All right. And then you can also add some kind of groups. All right. Same way, you type a group name, you add a group, and that's going to put a group into the tree. So you got a user and a group. An obvious group can contain other users. Group can also contain another group. And there's no limitation on how many levels you can have. Okay, so as I'm reading this requirement, you should be able to kind of come up with something about design. Okay, something we kind of talked recently. The patterns, what pattern to use. But let's focus on the functionality first. Okay, you can manage the users, group, and users just like this. You can add. You don't need to worry about the delete. You don't need to worry about a change. Let's just focus on add. Okay, just to make it a little bit simpler. All right, so this is the most important function for this main screen. This is like an admin, like central. Okay, we call it a control admin control panel. All right, now how do we use all the Twitter stuff? Or you have to open the users, right? So you can select any of these users. Okay, I select user, only user, and the select group doesn't make sense, just users. I select this user, and I can click on this button to open user view. All right, so that's going to trigger a different window, and which is here. All right, that's it. So in this program, you will need to have two windows. Okay, the first window will be the main control admin window. The second window will be this user window. This is for specific user to see. All right. Now this window, you want to do two things. You can follow friends. You can send a tweet. And you can also see your like news feed. Okay, let's talk about adding friends first. Again, very simple UI. Okay, you type a user ID. You don't need to worry about like giving a list for you to choose. Just type it. Okay, for example, I am user STU1. Okay, I want to follow John. So I'm going to type John here. Click on a button to say follow user. And now I can see the list of users I'm following currently. I am following this list of users. Okay, and you don't need to worry about the followers, just looking at the ones you're following. And then you can start to post and then make tweet. Every time when you type a message here, you click a button to post tweet, and then that's going to show up here in the list view. Okay, you type something, click, and then it's going to show up. However, since this is your news feed, now, any of you, the people you're following, if they post something, if Bob still posts something, you should also be able to see that, right? Just use this kind of a desktop window to simulate a very simple Twitter homepage where you can add people to follow. You can post stuff here. You can also see others' updates from this little list view. That's it. And of course, at the same time, when you are posting something, if you have followers, those followers will also see the same updates, but in the different windows. Okay, so this one here explains this whole situation. I can open, when we're testing, okay, we can just open different users. So I'm gonna open John, Bob, and SDU1, and then they show up 3 different windows. So all these windows should remain active. Not active, like not all the same time, but they should all be opened, and you can switch which one you want to operate. Okay, you can have 3 as many windows as you want to open, based on how many users you want to open. Once you open, you can then go different windows to add a follower, post to it, and then see all the list of the posts and everything. Okay, and then the key thing here is while we're opening multiple windows, let's say this is I can't see. Yeah, let's say this is Bob. Let me see. Can I do it? Annotation. Yeah. So this is Bob, and let me see the color. This is John, and then this is student. All right, so let's say students are following both Bob and John. So when Bob posts something here, and then we need to see a change here automatically. And if John is also following Bob, John also want to see that at the same time. All right, so just update their newsfeed if they're the followers. Okay, so that's it. These are the major function we're looking for. Let me close this one here. Okay. Oh wait, let me see, how do I clear this? Okay, one more time. Central control panel, add a user, add a group, open user view. And then from here, you're gonna be able to control your follower, show that in the list, type a tweet, and then send notifications to others, but also update your own newsfeed and be able to receive others' updates. Tree structure. What do you mean tree structure? You mean this one here? So that you can see all the groups and the users, right? I think the tree would be a good way to visualize that one, just like your files and folders. So that you can expand those in a group. You can hide everybody in the group. It's very flexible. So from here, you can find out the specific user and open the view. All right. Yeah, this is more like admin panel, and then here you're just using it. But again, this is again a Twitter simulation. Okay, we're not saying that multiple user can just go to this computer to do it. It doesn't work that way. We're just to simulate it. Display the path for tree. For you to know, well, yeah, you need, if you use the tree allows you to do a folder containment, and that's it. You just put them in the same thing, then this one will be able to expand it, right? Just make a list, like a tree view. Okay, I think in Java Swing there's something called a tree. Yeah, something like this. I think that's what we're looking for. Jason, yes. So the UI is going to be the part that blocks this project. It's going to make it like harder. All right, the UI, and if you never done Java Swing and you need to learn it, I don't think it's going to be that difficult, but then you just have to learn from scratch. All right, so there are a lot of classes you need to be familiar with, but then if you have done it, then that's not too difficult. But at the same time, you need to figure out all the structures and then patterns. Should we have the possibility of assigning multiple groups to unique users? No, you don't assign any groups, Ravi. This one here is only allows you to just create. So for example, I click on root, okay? I click on here, and then sorry, where, let me see, how do I use that? Yeah, I click on here. Where's the annotation? Yeah, we click on root, and then you add something, it's going to add under the root. If I click on this one here, I select it, and then I add another user, it will go under here. Okay. So you choose a position, and then you add a user or a group, and then it will show up there. Yeah, so that's why you won't have like a multiple issues. So every user only belong to one group or belong to the root. No, you won't be able to do that. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, those are edge cases. Don't worry, we won't do that. Okay, yeah. So Jimmy got the right question. Okay, we haven't talked about the patterns yet. Oh, there's one more function that I missed. Okay, in the main panel, there's just 4 buttons. Okay, these are like some admin buttons. If you click on this one here, it's gonna just pop up and tell you how many users in total here. Okay, show you how many users in total. If you click on this one, just to show you how many groups here in total, just count. Okay, here if you click on that, it's gonna show you how many messages that are being posted across all the users. And this one here is going to show you how much percentage of the messages are positive. Now, we're not asking you to do an AI sentiment analysis. All you need to do is to say, okay, if the word sentence has a word like good and great, it's kind of positive words, we consider that a positive, otherwise it's not. So you just count for all the messages, how many are positive, and then show us a statistics, a percentage. Yeah, this one, if you click on the button, show a dialogue, that would be great. Or actually, it doesn't have to be a dialogue. You can also show it somewhere here. Every time you click, and then you print a message. Click on this one, print the message, something like that. All right. Now, let's come back to the most important part about the whole thing about the purpose about this project, obviously, is design patterns. So in this example, I particularly ask you to apply 4 design patterns, and then 3 of them have been covered. We have 1 more remaining, okay? So they are Singleton, Observer, Visitor, and also Composite Pattern. Now, hopefully, you already saw that. Where do we apply Composite Pattern, guys? Composite Pattern. Do you still remember what Composite Pattern is? We showed you the example about the UI. Yeah, the buttons, the refresh, those things. Eventually, we're talking about composite pattern. We treat individuals and containers at the same type. Okay, so your user and group, they should be treated as same type. That's where you use composite pattern. All right. So yeah, so Ryan, these are 2 specific questions. Okay, like how you implement the view, everything is all up to you. So, but then, get the functionality right, but also think about the how you use the design pattern to organize some of the classes. All right. So anyway, composite pattern will be shown and reflected in this part here about you managing the user and the group, how you build those user group classes. Singleton, obviously, as Jimmy suggested, this element control panel is a singleton. All right, that should be very easy to use. And then we want you to do this observer pattern. And then very clearly, observer pattern will be show up here as you update each other's newsfeed. So if I'm, as a subject, I'm posting something, that's going to trigger the updates on the other ones. and then they should do their refresh automatically. So that's where you're going to see the observer pattern. Visitor pattern I haven't covered, so I think we'll talk about that on Tuesday. So this time, I want you to start to read this assignment carefully, start to do all the UI stuff, bring any kind of question you may have. On Tuesday, maybe we can talk one more time to clarify a few things, but also I need to talk about the visitor pattern. That visitor pattern will be used for these buttons. For now, you don't need to worry too much about the buttons, how those work. It's very easy to implement, but then we want you to follow some kind of pattern to do that. So that's will be covered in the visitor pattern. All right. Now, when I say apply this pattern, it doesn't really sound like it's not really like you apply some library. Okay, I add this dependency, and suddenly I can call this function do that. That's not how you apply a pattern, right? The pattern means that you organize a class in certain ways. That means when you are building this, if you're following a pattern, you're not going to add or increase or decrease amount of code you're going to need for this application. It just force you to follow the pattern's guidance to organize your code and classes. Eventually, when we look at the code, how do we see your pattern? We just want to see, oh, if this is observer pattern, do you have an observer interface? Do you have a method called update? Where is your subject? If your subject has a parent class, like how you're doing this update all type of thing. If this is a singleton, that's easy. We'll talk about the three elements we're looking for the singleton pattern. And if this is composite, now we're talking about you have to have a hierarchy that merge both individuals and groups, right? So there's specific signs that you can see from the code that you follow the patterns and then build the system. All right. So this assignment, guys, we give it every time, and then it's definitely one of the challenging projects you can ever have in the CS program, especially if you've never done the UI. It just takes some time. Okay, I won't call it difficult. It just takes some time to learn, and there's a learning curve for anything new. And Java Swing will be good. Java FX will be fun, and if you can show the pattern, then it's all good. All right. So you can read the description here that kind of summarize what I mentioned. Maybe there's some details I didn't cover, but you can just follow these ones, to do it. But overall, the functionality is wide open. If you are adding something, you're talking about, oh, can I use this kind of UI to do this one? It's all fine. You don't have to clarify that with me. Just make sure that you show the patterns. Okay. Now, in order to make this whole checking thing, grading thing easier, okay, for the submission, I need you to get one more thing for me, okay. Source code is the most important. Just like what you did last time, just put your things into GitHub, or a same type of link. Now, I also need a video to see the running project, because that's where I had a lot of trouble a year ago, that a lot of you use a totally different thing. Now, since it sounds like some of you want to use a Java Flex, I don't even have the environment set up. So I might not be able to run your code. So what you should do is to just do a screenshot recording of your running application, briefly explain, like run your application, explain how it works, to give us a quick demo, and then just point out how you apply the patterns very briefly. Okay, the video could be like less than 2 minutes. The main thing is you want to see how you run your project, what the project will look like, and then get that video to YouTube. You can just make it as unlisted if you don't want other people to see, and we just need the link. All right. That's a new requirement, because previously we had too many issues on running everyone's project. We can't run it. Sometimes you didn't push the right thing. There are too much issues. Right. Okay, but the code and structure pattern, that's a goal. Okay, we'll talk more about the visitor pattern, but that doesn't you won't need that one until the last part, which is the button part. Okay. How do you think about it? It's not too crazy, right? Oh, it's only 4 patterns actually, Jason, not pattern. But yeah, I agree that in general, you won't use a tons of patterns in every single program. Okay, using 3 or 4 is already a lot. Okay, very good practice. The pattern part actually is easy, but then in the beginning you got to figure out how the UI thing work, and that's going to be more time consuming. Um, but that's exactly what happened, because in the example I normally give you a very clean, easy example, such as I did this one here, what we did last time, stock, right? Oh, NBA game. These are too easy, guys. Okay, in reality, you're not gonna have this kind of clean, simple code base that you can just build a one simple class like this and then do the pattern. That doesn't, it's not realistic. In reality, their code base is a lot more, and then their component, the class has 1,000 lines of code. Then we ask you to apply a pattern. That's the reality. That's why this example probably give you a better feeling on how you can apply a pattern in practice. Yeah, yeah. Okay, guys. Yeah, we only gave you 2 weeks, guys. Don't ask me for extension right now. So it's really not needed, guys. Okay, it's all about priority. It's not about the time, how much time you need. Okay, if you think this one probably is going to help you to practice the pattern, I think this is more important than automata, than operating system, than programming language, than most of other courses I don't teach. All right. Yes, I will update the slides, and also I think I missed one video as well. Focus on the assignment in the coming 2 weeks. Okay, I might just get some more videos for the patterns, so that maybe it's a little bit more efficient for you guys to learn. And then, honestly, if you can finish this project with this 4 pattern, you're good to go. All the other patterns you can always learn by yourself. Okay, don't ask for extension right now, guys. You know me. If at the end you ask me for extension, I'll give you. Okay, of course, but that's not the right attitude to do the anything. Okay, you don't want to start a project and say, "Oh, can I have more time?" Okay, so try it first. Okay, it's all about your priority, and then you know how much effort you put. Okay, yeah, definitely a nice challenge, Ricky. Yeah, you won't regret doing this one. Yeah, even though Java Swing is very outdated, um, but then the UI system is all similar. If you know how to do Java Swing, the Flex and Android, all of those are same. They're all same. The only difference is things are getting easier and easier. Yeah. All right. Come on, Funguda. 2 weeks, not bad, guys. I don't think you guys need 2 weeks. You normally just do this weekend thing. That I if this is my first semester, I teach in Cal Poly. When students are seeing this, I will be so nervous. Just give you like 4 weeks. Unfortunately, this is my 6th year teaching in college, and you still tell me you need more time. I know you guys how you work things. No matter how much time I give, let's say the 480 project, I give everyone 12 weeks to do it. I know everyone will only do the project probably 80% of the project will be done in the last 1 week. So that's how things are working, and so I'm not too you can't easily persuade me right now, but it's okay. For whatever reason you need more time, we'll give you more time. Don't worry. Okay, so the goal is for you to finish this thing and then really try it. But guys, I just want to say that this is not something you can rush overnight. Okay, if you only do this one the night before, I don't think you can finish that one if you never done the UI before. Okay, because there's some UI stuff. I'm not saying the pattern is so difficult. The UI part takes time. Okay, so you need to, if you never done anything about UI, take a look. Okay, Java Swing probably is easier to start with. Okay, there are a lot of tutorials. Um, and then you only need this a few. There are these official ones. Okay, they got a lot of good things for you to use. All right. Well, you get a lot of a project at the midterm. We didn't give you a lot. Okay, we only give you one thing over the past 10 weeks, and then that this is only the second one. Uh, I mean, I'm very generous. Uh, okay, don't worry about grade, guys. If you guys all try, I'll guarantee everyone got a good grade at the end. Okay, so it's just do something that useful for you. Yeah, I can't comment too much on the Java Flex. I know it's a very good one. It shouldn't matter too much, okay? But then the key is we're looking at the patterns more. I think they should all be similar. But Java Flex definitely is a more advanced UI system, okay? Java Swing is totally outdated. Yeah, nobody building Java Spring application anymore. Yeah, it looks like all pretty similar. So I don't expect big changes. Totally fine. Okay, Java Swing totally fine. Sorry, Flash totally fine. One thing I wouldn't recommend too much is it's okay. Okay, if you use that one, the visual editor. Okay, I know there's some visual editor you can just directly drag and drop. It might work, but it's definitely not a best way to program for this one because you might need to modify a lot of the code and integrate some of your data into the UI part. So it's always better to program to code the whole UI by yourself rather than using the visual editor. I know like NetBeans has a very nice visual editor you can use. You can do that, okay, but it's I feel that's not the best way to do this one. Yeah. Yeah. So it looks like Flex is totally fine. Okay. I think it's very similar to Java Swing. So just go for it. Doesn't matter. Yeah. All right. So looks good, guys. Any questions? I'll put some more details on the video, but the video is just, just go ahead to run your thing. We just want to see your thing running, so that we don't have to run in on our side. Okay. All right. Well, if you have any questions, feel free to stay, and then otherwise, I will see you on Tuesday. All right. Thanks, guys.